Welcome to our live workshop here at our knowledge platform. I'm Hartmut, editor at Entwickler and DevMio. I'm leading you through the program, and I'm happy to introduce our speaker of today's workshop to you. Hi, Karsten.
Hi, hi, Hartmut. Thank you for having me here today.
Yeah, Karsten, we're gonna have 90 minutes of Angular hands-on workshop. The most you write in your intro text, the most anticipated release since years.
Yeah, right.
A lot of features to be shown here today. Very curious on what you are explaining us today. Before we start, let's explain a little bit. We are on two platforms here, and we have two crowds. Entwickler.de is our knowledge platform in the German community market, and we have the brand new DevMio platform out there for the English community, English events. All is about IT professionals, topics like Angular, like Spring Boot, C#, and you find everything here on our platforms. And today, Angular 14. Karsten, you are in that domain for years already. You're a developer, consultant, and speaker, trainer at conferences here since years.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, let me just say some words. You write for the Java magazine and different platforms here on the market. And with this, we're happy to have you here.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you, Hartmut, for having me. You already told a lot about me. I'm an Angular expert, like you already said, and since Angular, since the early beta versions. So a lot of time on my side. Welcome to everyone. Welcome to Angular 14, or the update workshop for Angular 14. You are welcome to ask questions like during the talk. We have additional Q&A time at the end, but you can just ask questions, for example, in the chat all the time, and we can discuss it as we go forward. We also will have samples, which I will provide via GitHub. I will show you in a minute when I start.
Exactly. Then, I let you the stage. Feel free to ask questions here in the chat. And also, if there's something we can do for you, just feel free to post it. We're in the back and helping you with everything you need from us. So have fun with that talk, and the stage is yours now.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, like I already said, we want to have fun with Angular 14. What we want to do is we want to start with this Angular 13 project. You can load this Angular 13 project on my GitHub page, codecoaster/ng update demo. You can load it right from GitHub. And then this is an Angular 13 project, like you see here already, a little bit like from the last release. And we want to update it to see what we can do with a new Angular 14 release, and also see how the update process is going. What is the first step you need to do when you start with Angular 14 is always install the new Angular CLI version. So npm install -g for global at Angular/CLI at latest. So we can have the latest version. And then we can start the update process on this particular project. Generally, the Angular team extends Angular based on very strong on community wishes. Like you can also go to the Angular project page I want to search all GitHub. You can look up Angular here, and then you can see the issues, and you can also work with the Angular team by providing issues or by answering RFCs. So when you want to have a new feature, then you can look up here, is there already support for this feature, like is this requested by others or not? And you can really interact with them a lot via GitHub and via the RFC process of Angular. The latest release works for two things. For one thing, the very major community wish was the type forms support, which we will cover, and also a simpler Angular mental model. Like we have, in my consulting job, oftentimes I hear, oh, what do I do with these modules, with these ng modules? This is so complicated. What is happening with them? Why do we need those? And Angular 14 now starts with a developer preview on optionalizing these ng modules. So you don't need them anymore. They are, like I said, optional, so you can use them, but you may not need to use them. For this, this release also has the standalone components, which we will look at. But now let's just start updating this project from Angular 13 to Angular 14. You can also, if you don't, or if you are not sure what to do when to update, there's also a nice page which is from the Angular team, developed by the Angular team. It is called update.angular.io. And there you can toggle your versions, like I'm on Angular 13 and I want to update to Angular 14. And then I can maybe say, do I have a basic app complexity or advanced app complexity? And then you can say, show me how to update. And then there are the basic tips you need to perform, or you need to transform and see what your project needs. And then you will also get this help here. You can use it in your update process. For our update process, we can just type ng update because the Angular CLI supports automatic updates. And then here is shown what is needed for the latest update. And you can see I can update from Angular 13.2.5 to Angular 14.1. The release just came yesterday, so we will have all the newest features which came with that release. And what you can do, you can just copy all this, this command lines which are given here, and you can either one by one update those, or you can also concatenate those command lines with a space, and then you can simultaneously update all the.
Okay, seems that we had a problem with the stream, but we are back now. Sorry for that short interruption. Karsten, it was around about 2 minutes ago. Perhaps you can just have a short recap and continue to talk there.
Yes, concatenating the update. Oh, that was quite some time, but okay, I will re-step my last actions. You have seen here, I had this this output, and now I can just either one by one enter this command lines here, or I can like concatenate the packages I want to update. This can be a little dangerous if the new version is out like just a very short time, so the other packages don't have time to also publish new versions. But as we here have a very only material and no other complex package structure, and also the update is already like by 14.1, we can all at once update these packages. And then I just hit enter, and all these packages were updated. That took a while, and in this while I showed you, or I wanted to show you the RFC, the strict forms RFC. This is how such an RFC looks. This is obviously complete now because the feature has landed in Angular, but and this feature is about having a form which now is not only any. Currently in Angular 13, it was you had a form group or a single form, and when you said party form.value, you just got any and could do anything with it and had no like code completion or something. But with Angular 14 now, you can say party form.value and then .address .house, and Angular or TypeScript will know house is a number, and street and party form.value.address.street is a string. And this is what you can do with Angular 14. This is the corresponding RFC. And Angular, or the Angular team, works with these RFCs and has a look, okay, what is the strongest feature or the strong feature wish of the community, and then says, okay, we built this. And now the installation process is done. And after the installation of the packages, Angular does some automatic migrations. For example, if some configuration update or something is happening in Angular CLI or so, this is done automatically, or at least as best as it can be, as fully. You can see here what has changed, for example, in the Angular JSON. There we don't have anymore a default project. Now the project is chosen in which folder we are, and then the tsconfig has updated. As a target version, we now target ES 2020, no longer ES 2017, to make Angular bundles and Angular applications smaller by leveraging modern browser functionalities. And also we don't need to like account for Internet Explorer anymore, as Internet Explorer is deprecated and is not used by Microsoft itself. And then also migrations are run from Angular CDK and Angular Material, but there wasn't any migrations which concern us right now. And then, of course, Angular Core. Angular Core transformations for the forms especially. Where do I have the forms? Not here. Right here. We had these forms like the form builder and the form controls and the form groups, and all these were untyped. And to prevent any breaking changes in Angular applications as you update, the Angular team has decided to change your current forms into so-called untyped forms and untyped form builder, of course. So you keep this any behavior which is available until 13, but as a definite type. So you see here, this is the untyped form builder. And if you want to update to use the good new typed forms, you can just say here, I want to use the FB, the normal form builder, and then automatically this gets typed two proper types. We will have a look at this a little later. First, we want to have another look at the standalone components feature. The standalone components feature is still in developer preview, so be aware the APIs might change. They won't do that necessarily because they, of course, want to be stable. But if like developer surveys give the result that there needs to be some change, be prepared for the change. Right. First thing, we want to have a simple component which we can transform to a standalone component, because we want to give this feature a simple look. We want to make the whole application standalone, but let's start simple. Let's start with a nav component here, which I can maybe show you shortly the app, how it looks. The app is not very simple, but also not very complex. It's but it's still a demo app. But we can see most of the features which are interesting to us now as soon as the app loads. Takes some time. The computer has high load because of the Zoom meeting. Yeah, here you see. This is just an app with a dashboard here. You can have different cards with different contents, and you can also have a video page where you can have a look at different videos, and also you can you have here some customer overview which is currently not filled, and some form like the form we saw just moments ago. And now, in order to make this nav component a standalone component, there's not that much to do. We just need to say standalone true. This seems very easy. It is not complete, but this is the first step we need to take. If I now compile that, however, I will get errors because the nav component is now standalone. It cannot be declared inside another ng module. You see here the red error bar. Class nav component is standalone and cannot be declared inside an ng module. And this is because the nav component now no longer is just a component, but standalone components in reality are components within, with kind of their own virtual module, as it is called. So you can't declare them, but instead you can, for example, import them like any other module. So by making components standalone, they become their own modules, kind of. And when we do this, then we will see different errors. This this kind of virtual module, which now is the nav component, is needed to keep those old ng modules and the new standalone components still interoperable. So even if you decide to develop new features and these features should be standalone, then you can be sure you can use the standalone features together with your current app. And also this means you can like upgrade your app one by one and don't have to make a big bang migration because the APIs are compatible or at least interoperable. Now we get, of course, errors here which say he does not know the mud icon, for example, if you have a look at the nav component, there are, of course, many material modules used. And what you have to do, like with standard Angular, like we know it, you have to import the mud site nav module, for example. But if you now import this, you will see that this is not imported inside an ng module, but inside the component itself. So you see here imports mud site nav module. This is also because, well, under the hood there's the virtual module, and now you import the other components right here. This is one reason, and the other reason is, of course, Angular needs to know which components you are using. And that's why you have this. And you need to do this for the other modules as well, like the mud list module and also the router module. Right, you can use the router module here, there, and the mud icon module. So you see, I have many different components, and I need, of course, to import all these modules. Is there one missing? Yes, the async pipe is missing. And for the async pipe, we have already gotten like new support also in Angular 14.1, because up until 14.1, it was necessary to import the common module to have these features like ngIf, the async pipe, and so on. But with Angular 14.1, there's also the possibility to not import the whole common module, but just import really the things you need. Like you can import only the async pipe. And if you do that, you'll see here there's only the async pipe imported. By the way, I am using the ERP version, like the newest beta version of WebStorm, because the 2022.1 version doesn't support the standalone components yet. So if you want to use WebStorm and want to use standalone components, either you need to deal with the errors which you will get in the older version, or you need to run the 2022.2 ERP version, or just need to wait until WebStorm releases this, the new version. It should theoretically be released in July, so the wait shouldn't be too long. Right. Next thing. If I now run the app, you can see here, he has some, he reminds me that I use ngIf. Yeah. And I, of course, also need to include ngIf here. There, I imported ngIf because I didn't import the common module. And he warns me about this, so I don't get any strange errors. And then you see the app still works. I have only the standard errors or the standard warnings you get from the Chrome extensions, but nothing noteworthy. However, this is not all which we can achieve with standalone components. Next, we will have a look at routing, and especially the routing and lazy loading of standalone components. For this, we go into the videos component, or first here, have a look at the app routing module. This is how the app routing module looks. And the videos component is currently inside a lazy loaded module. But if you have a look into this module, there's really not much going on, just the video component on the root slash, a simple module, and then the components. And of course, this is really not so nice that you just to lazily load a component need a full module and then a routing module. This was, until now, not not an ideal situation. However, with Angular 14 now, we can say this component is standalone, standalone true. And then we, of course, have to import these guys here, especially the tubs module, because we have here a tubs group. Import my tubs module. I can do it like this. And this should be really everything which is needed in the current situation. Not quite. Of course, I have still the module, but I really don't need those video module and also the routing module anymore, because I want to directly lazily load the video component. And I can do that, so I just remove the other modules. And now I just go forward and go into these app routing module and say, okay, I don't want to use load children, because with load children, you always want to load more than just a component. Instead, you can say load component. So beforehand, you had load children and then a direct component import. Now you also have a load component import. And then you can say, okay, I just want to load the videos component dynamically and use it here. And then this is everything you need. And then when I go into the app, here you can see the videos component works like before. And also you can maybe have a look if the lazy loading worked. And you can see here there's source app videos lazily loaded. And you can also see I make this a bit bigger. The chunk which was loaded was really source app videos video component.ts. So this is everything working like you see here. So now, nice, we can just load single standalone components and don't need this overhead of the ng module anymore. We can also lazily load more complex stuff with standalone components. And we can use this to simplify this thing here. So we have path customer with load children, where we load a customer module. And when we have a look at this customer module, we see here the customer routing. And this customer routing does contain more than one route, which should be like the standard case in most cases. For one, the customer component, and then the customer input component. And now we want to make this easier by also using standalone components. First, we may start with the customer overview component here. Just make it standalone, true. And yeah, we see here we don't use really anything, so we even don't need something like imports. We just can skip this. And also, if we have this, we then proceed with the customer input component here. And this component is a little bit more complex. Like we have forms, and inside the HTML, we have this mud cards and all this stuff. And we really need this. So when we make this here standalone, we can just copy all the modules needed from the customer module. So like the forms module, customer routing module, and so on. We can just remove that here and insert it inside the imports statement. Like this. And now we don't need the customer module anymore. We can just delete it. After we've done this, there's just one more thing to do. We still have the customer routing module. And as I said, we want to get rid of the ng modules. So you guess right if you say this needs to be removed, but still we need to have some kind of root configuration. And indeed, this is the only thing we need. We can just say we export the new root configuration, maybe give it a better name like customer roots. And then we can rename also this file, because this is no longer a full module, but instead of customer routing module, I just call it here customer.routing.ts. And the only thing we now need to do inside this app routing module, I can go on and say, okay, I don't have a customer module anymore. So I don't really need this whole thing anymore, but we still want to load this children. And that's why we say, okay, I don't load the customer module or the customer component, but instead I load the customer routing. And with the customer routing, I load the customer routes. And this is really everything needed now, or the only thing needed to load a feature set, like more than one component, but many components inside one feature. And if you now compile this, you get an error. I did the import at the wrong component. All these imports you don't need in the customer component, because you don't have there anything, but I wanted to import it in the customer input module. Like this, because here all the components are needed. Then clean up a little and it should work. Yes, right. And now you can see when I go to customers, there is the customer module, or the customer routing in this case, loaded. And the customer input here also gets loaded. Any questions up until here? Okay. So we have a look at what we achieved so far, and we didn't lose that much time with it. So the Angular update goes really smooth. I mean, normally you have very big, very complex apps, but even those are transformed to Angular 14 rather quickly. I had a customer with a rather big app, with also a big ecosystem with an own like component library. They didn't use material. They built their own component library, and these guys pulled off the Angular 14 update in a manner of like 1 day or so, if you sum totally the time which was used for it, maybe even less. So this is really nothing big. But it is so powerful. So now we have this whole package, like these two routes already are transformed to standalone components. We have the bigger feature, the customer feature, and we have only a single component which we lazily load. But still, there is some parts that need to be done. For example, we still have the app routing module here. So a big module, and also, of course, the app module itself, which need to be transformed and which we need to get rid of if we want to have a real standalone application. And also you can see here, there's still this dashboard component, which we also have to get rid of, or not the component itself, but rather this module import here. And we do this. The next step for us is to transform the dashboard component into a standalone component. And we say just standalone is true. And then we, of course, need to import a few material modules because we use, for example, the mud list or mud cards here. And therefore, we just can import all these. Either you can do it with the help of your IDE, like here, import mud card module and so on. I have this already covered. I will just import them here. And then everything should work again. Right, now I have a dashboard component which is working. One thing which is okay, like you have the standalone components, you have the imports, and you don't really need to import this component anymore because this component is now standalone and, as I said, is an own module of itself. And therefore, if this is given here in the routing, you can just see, hey, this component, this dashboard component can be loaded right from the start. So you don't really have to do anything about it. What you can do, you can, of course, also transform this into a standalone component. So you have this load component statement, which needs a function, such a fat arrow function, and then you just say import import dashboard component.ts, and then after this you need to transform this file import to a component import. So you need to extract the component of the file, and in this case this is the dashboard component. And now you also have a lazily loaded component. Right. And if I restart the app in completeness, you see ngserve. And this ngserve now really generates all these different lazy loaded chunks. Still takes a moment with all this zoom going on. You have the initial chunks, and then here the customer routing chunk, the video chunk, and the dashboard component chunk. So already everything covered as lazy loaded standalone components. Now we're just one or two steps away from having a complete standalone application. But in order to get rid of these two, we need to get a step higher in the hierarchy. So we need to have a look at the main TS. Normally, you have this platform browser dynamic bootstrap module app module. So in order to get rid of this app module, we need to get rid of this statement. And the Angular team got us covered because there is a new statement which we can use. This is called bootstrap application, and this bootstrap application needs a component, so we give it the app component. So now we can just bootstrap the application by importing the app component. And if we had a very simple application, or for example an Angular element or something, this would almost like be enough. We wouldn't have to do anything more. But in our case, we have a complex app with complex with the complex structure, and also with routing, where we say here router module for root. So we need to set up the router, and this is a thing which is not handled by this statement here. So we need something for this. We need to configure the router right here. And for this, we can just do pretty much what we already did with the customer module. So we can delete everything here, like the app routing module, and just export our app routes. Export const app routes, because this is everything we need to know for the router to be initialized. And the initialization of the router can now happen also here. For the initialization of the router, we just need to give the application providers to start from. And we have this providers statement, which we can set here. And this provider statement we can now use to initiate our providers. Normally, we would call router module for root and then give this router module for root the app routes which we declared. So something like this, router module for root, and then give it the app routes. But this does obviously not work in this case because the router module for root gives us a module with providers. But we don't need a module with providers. We just need the providers themselves. And to do this, Angular has us covered again by providing a function which is called import providers from. And we just can pass this function the module, the router module for app root, and then the router is initialized. So this function takes care of that. We can also use this to take care of anything, other things, like, for example, if we have modules with providers of their own or other modules, we can also import them in this way. For example, the HTTP client module, which provides the HTTP client. This module has also to be called with import providers from. And also what you see here, you can not only call every module of its own with this function, you can pass this function multiple modules. For example, the browser animations module, which we need to enable the material animations. Also this we can provide here. And then you see there are still the problems from the app module, but the app module is now not needed anymore. We can totally delete it. And then one last thing remains, the app component. The app component, if the app should be moduleless and fully standalone, then the app component also needs to be a standalone component. And we do this by saying standalone true. And then we have a short look what we need. Components. We need the nav component. This is an easy one. We already made this component standalone. If not, we would have to do it standalone now. And then we can just import it. And here you see the import of the nav component. And then we need the router outlet provided by the router. And this is fairly easy. We can just import the router module to get access to the router outlet. And if we have done this, the app is now really completely standalone. We have no modules, no ng modules left, besides of the modules which come with material and the common module. But our application itself has no more ng modules. And this is really nice because you see you can still use the modules and it is totally interoperable. It's totally compatible. You need not worry about anything. And also you don't need to transform your app as a whole. You just have your app and you can, for example, extend it by standalone features, or you can just transform everything, or you can transform it incrementally, or you can even not transform it, because as it stands now, ng modules got optional, but that doesn't mean they are completely removed or completely out of the scope. You can still use these ng modules. And I also find them nice, or find the ng modules rather nice to give the app a structure. Like, I mean, the app, of course, still has a structure because of all the folders here, and the folders give us structure. But with the ng modules, we also had kind of structure by Angular, or Angular we were able to structure the application with Angular tools. But maybe this is also a personal view of this situation. We can still rename this, because this is not a module, app routing module, but we have just the app routes. And you didn't get it. So now we have a completely standalone app. And you saw also another thing. If you watched closely for the compilation phase, you did see, maybe I will scroll up here. You didn't see just the customer module and the dashboard module, but you also should see right here, not only the customer module or the video and the dashboard module, which we saw earlier, but now you can also see that Angular was able to like further optimize the app and see, or have a look, okay, what is needed in certain parts of the application. And so Angular is able to make additional code splits. So the initial code chunk will get smaller, because here, for example, this feature and this feature were also maybe not used in all of the app, but only in some parts, for example, in the dashboard component. And now Angular says, okay, I can split these from the application as well, and don't need it to bundle in the initial bundle or in another bundle, but I can optimize the application and the build process further, and just make them their own lazily loaded modules. If I go into the application now, for example, in the videos component, and load everything new, you can see here everything JavaScript reloaded. We loaded the default node modules Angular CDK portal, the CDK portal for things like overlays or something. And we loaded, of course, the video feature, and then these players, these YouTube players are loaded. They are loaded inside an iframe. But yeah, this is loaded. And then if we go to the customers, then we see here the customer module is loaded, or the customer input module. And then when we go to the dashboard, you can see the dashboard gets lazily loaded. And here there are also these overlays for which the portals are needed. Right. Any questions until here? Okay. A short disclaimer. Like I said, the standalone components are currently,
one question's coming here in the chat. Can you create a library with standalone components, or do you still need ng modules for this?
Indeed, you don't need, I mean, you don't necessarily need them. you can, and also Material is considering moving to standalone components. But yeah, this depends a little on your situation. If you do a open source library, for example, which is used by different or by like an open community, then I would suggest, if you want to have standalone components, then maybe do both. Because maybe you want to be compatible for older versions, then you just don't do it. And if you are maybe inside a corporation and you can say, okay, we switch the whole corporation to standalone components, then you can say, okay, I will do everything without ng modules and with standalone components. But I mean, what we need to remind ourselves, the standalone components in their current version are just like components with virtual modules. So internally, they use an ng module. This is, yeah, some of you may be familiar with the SCAM pattern. This is the single component Angular module. So there was once a strong movement inside the Angular community to have each component and an associated module. So each component had their module, and this is similar to this one. So yeah, I would say it's not too bad to have a ng module inside your library, but you can do it, of course, yes.
So any other questions? Not so far in the chat. So yeah, just go on.
Okay, thank you. Nice question. Yes. But and also what's maybe even more important, if you consider doing standalone components, like I said, they are in the developer preview. They are not like finally released. So of course, try it out, test if it suits all your needs, and maybe also test if all your like corner cases are doable with standalone components. And then if you, for example, find something which doesn't suit you, or where you can think of something which the Angular team can do better, then, or if you find a bug, of course, then open an issue inside the Angular project. So the Angular team can know about your use case and can say, okay, we want to do this better, or maybe have a different approach to things. So you shouldn't necessarily like be totally anxious or be totally afraid of having API breakages of the standalone component API, but you are not safe from it because it is a developer preview. So expect changes to the API, keep that in mind before making like your whole ecosystem standalone. You can do it with, for example, preview apps or on a preview branch or something, but expect to have breaking changes. Right. We have this standalone components API now fully covered, or not in every detail, of course, but the important things we got covered. I would now progress to the type form features. The other big feature, or the big feature which is also released finally inside Angular 14. Type forms is the biggest, or was the biggest feature, or the biggest requested feature since like Angular 2 started. Immediately after the people got like accustomed to how the reactive forms worked, all the people said, why do these reactive forms still give back any? Why don't they like give the proper types? And back in the time, there were problems with TypeScript that's why this didn't work in the past, why they had to return any, but now with a better type system and improved TypeScript, so to say, we can do this, or the Angular team can do this better. Maybe just have a short look inside a component here where I make a small form, like for example, a customer form. And in Angular 13, you set new form group, for example, and inside this form control, you had, for example, a name where you had a name new form control. And there you could have like an empty string or something to initialize the form, and also maybe have an email new form group, new form control I wanted to have. So, and in this situation, you had the form group and the form control. And if you now would say customer form point value, you would get an any. And if you then update the application, like from Angular 13 to Angular 14 to be compatible with the old APIs, Angular would transform these form groups and also this form controls to untyped form groups and untyped form controls. And this is because the Angular team wanted to make sure that you all don't have like many breaking changes and many errors after upgrading, but they wanted to do it in a way that after upgrading, you can then have a look at your forms and then incrementally, one by one, update the different forms and say, okay, I want to have, or I want to transform these untyped forms into really good typed forms. Here you see the value which you now have is any. Yeah, you don't see that very good, but if you want to have code completion, you can just have code completion based on guesses by the IDE. And if you now transform after the Angular 14 update, you transform these form, you transform the form. Nice. Sorry. Now that you have the form group and the form control, you have the really good typed forms. So if you say now this customer form dot value, you got the email and the name. So the IDE knows which types you have. And if you say, okay, I want to have the email, you can also have a look at the types here. You should see, okay, the types are now string or null or undefined. And these string or null are undefined. Now you may ask why string or null are undefined. This is because string, of course, is type inference, because you have a form group of a certain type, like with name and email, and he can or TypeScript in this case can deduct from this, okay, there is a string here, so this email property always has a string. And this is why there's string, but then why null and why undefined? Null is because a form can be null initially. And if you don't want to have a form null initially, then you need to set initial value, of course. And then you also need to say non-nullable to true. And then if you do this, you see, okay, this form is now string or undefined and no longer null because it's non-nullable. And even if you call this .form.reset, it will be reset to the initial value which we see here. This also means if you call this customer form dot reset like this, then this will be reset to the empty string here. And if you say you have a form foo@bar.com, then it will be reset to this value. Right. But now we still have this undefined here, and this undefined comes from the fact that you can disable a form or even form controls. So you can, for example, say this customer form dot controls dot email dot disable, and this disable now has the consequence that this email is undefined. So if you disable a form, then the value of that form will become undefined. And this is like a fact with the Angular API. If you still want to get this email value, you need to use the function get raw value, and then you get all the values from all the forms here. And you see, for example, email is now a string, and if you have name is string or still null, because there's not non-nullable in this case. This is the one thing which is nice about the new Angular typed forms. They are typed like automatically as soon as you use them, as soon as you switch back to form group and form control and no longer use the untyped versions of these classes, which you get after the transformation to Angular 14. And then also in this case here, this customer input, I showed you right in the beginning that this was transformed to an untyped form builder, and I put it back to a form builder. This is, of course, also directly good typing. So if I go here and say, okay, when the form is submitted, then I want to check, for example, the address form, and then I can access the value, for example, the address value or the city value. And now you see a not so nice thing here. These values are all null. But why are they all null? And this is because they are initialized with null, and TypeScript now infers all the types as null. So in order to have, for example, strings here, you need to change this so they are initialized with strings. This is the one thing to solve this, or the one solution to solve this. Another solution would be to give the real type of the form. So you can say, okay, this is a form group, but now you need to provide, or you should provide the proper structure here, the proper type, so to say. And now this type is a form group, and this form group has, for example, a property company, and this property company contains a form control of type string. And now you see, oh, there's an error because, of course, I just couldn't cover everything. But also the company is not a string or null, and I just said the company is a string. And this is also because this form builder here, if you say form builder.group, you build a form which is, again, either this type you give here or this type you give here and null. And to have a completely non-nullable form, you can call on the form builder this.fb. This is the form builder. I just write this out here. And then the form builder has a property non-nullable, and this is the so-called non-nullable form builder. And this form builder has all the forms now non-null. So you can see here the company is now a form control of type string, and then first name form control of type string, and so on. So this is also a nice addition, this non-nullable form builder. And then you see here all these last name and so on now have a string type, proper string type. Right. Questions about these forms or the typed forms? Okay. Then maybe one interesting thing which we can also do in Angular 14. For example, what you can do, I mean, this is not Angular 14 strictly, this you could do also a little earlier, but we can have here the browser title. I hope you can see it. Maybe I just do it a little bit down. ng update demo is of course the title of the app, but if you have different routes, you typically don't want to have the app title, but you want to have something like a title app or dashboard. And you can of course do this with the title on the root config. So now if I go here, you see there is now the dashboard shown here in the browser title. And you can do this for all routes, of course, for the videos, and you can do this for the customers. So now there's videos and now there's customers. In Angular 14, you can not only have fixed strings here, but you can have also a resolver in these situations. So you can say, I want to have a new resolver by introducing one via a schematic. So either ng generate resolver, or you can use WebStorm in this case, like I do here, and then you call it, for example, my title resolver. You can see here ng generate resolver my title, and this is the case here now. And then I can also just give here the resolver, the my title resolver. One thing you need to have in mind, this resolve is now a Boolean, but you can only have a resolver of type string. Yes. So string. And yeah, normally you would now like call a service. For example, we have our customer, for example, you can call a customer service or whatever, and then just load the title, or you can extract, for example, root parameters via the activated root snapshot, and then you just can provide a title. For example, I can provide now root yeah, you can maybe use the data, or you can of course use everything you like imagine. For example, I can use the URL and join the URL by dots. This is the crazy version of the resolver, and then you can just use this inside the app. And then you need to have this resolver like everywhere you want to use it. So you see here, we have videos, we have customer still, because the title resolver now only resolved the URL. This is not so interesting. Maybe we can make an HTTP call like this HTTP get JSON HTTP JSON placeholder typecode.com / where do I get the let me just look up the fake API for this. So now I have the to-do, and the to-do, now we need to have like a title of the to-do, and we can do this by extracting the title via the pipe map. So this gives us a structure like title with string, and we want to transform this by using the to-do and extracting the to-do dot title. So now we have here a title which is given by some random to-do. And I can, of course, not only use it like this. I can say, okay, I want for the dashboard, I want to use the title resolver, and here I want to use a fixed string, for example. So now here, by the dashboard, I have this. And here I have the other titles. Yeah. We can also, if we want to have, we can build our own title strategy, which is like it's called, because now we only just put the string or the resolver or the fixed string here. We can also implement something which is called a title strategy, which is simply a service or some kind of service. Let's call it my title strategy. And this service just needs to but extend the title strategy provided by Angular. And this title strategy has one abstract method, namely update title. And we need to call the super constructor. And now this update title method needs to set the title. So now everything you need to do is to have to set the title. This update title method is called by Angular, and in order to be able to change the title, we need to inject the title service. The title service we can call not only here, but in principle, we could call it in our components themselves. And we can say, okay, I want to have the old title old title, which I can get by calling this dot build title and providing it with the snapshot I get here. And then I have the old title, and I can say, for example, this, or if I have an old title and then maybe a new title, then I can, for example, say this title, set title, and then I can do like, again, I could call other services, but of course I can also set like the old title and then, for example, concatenate this with my app title, for example, my ng14 demo app. And if I do this and restart the application, then you see here, you should see here, I have this service, but of course this service needs to be provided. And in this case, not provided in root, but it needs to be provided as a real service. So we can use this providers here and say, provide title strategy, use class my title strategy. And now you can see here my ng14 demo app, customers feature, or videos feature, or the dashboard, which has this Lectus autumn chromium string. And this is how you can relatively easy, by using this property and then the title strategy, update the title. Any questions about this, or about the other topics, or maybe a different topic which interests you? And yeah, I mean, it's almost half past. So if you have any questions, just feel free to ask, or if you want to see something.
So not so far in the chat. We have a couple of minutes. Perhaps we can go on showing us something.
What is really nice about Angular 14, they have implemented new features like npm npm. You can call now or bootstrap a completely new Angular project without needing to install the Angular CLI. And you can do this by npm add init and then Angular CLI ng new project. So that was not completely it. This is a brand new feature from the Angular CLI 14.1. So I don't really know it by heart, but this was something which really I found really cool reading it like in the morning. They released Angular 14.1 like just in the last night. So this is really a cool new feature. Which I know, or which yeah, really found very interesting. I also had it on my Twitter. Maybe I can show this just shortly. This was a tweet by the Angular team, which I also would encourage you to like have a look, follow me, follow the Angular team on Twitter. Here, there's me, and then the Angular team just pulled this here, npm init at Angular new app. I was a little bit too fast. So at npm init at Angular demo project, and then would you like to proceed? Yes, and then you can just, without installing Angular CLI, initialize a new demo project. Still some questions.
So yeah, if you have some questions, please feel free to shoot. I can ask you personally, Karsten. You've showed us a lot of new stuff. What do you think is really the biggest change here? Your personal best new feature in Angular 14? What is the game changer?
It's really a difficult question, because for me personally, the best or the longest awaited feature is for sure the typed forms. I always had this when writing forms, that I thought to myself, why do they do it with any? Why don't they have proper typing when they have proper typings all around everything in the rest of the APIs? But now that they got this straight, I'm really happy with that. And then if you look like on Twitter around what you see, what gets promoted very much is, of course, the standalone API. I mean, like I said, I was happy with the ng modules. For me, this wasn't that big of a problem, but for many people struggled with this. So yeah. I think this is also a great feature, but for me personally, the typed forms are for sure the big thing.
Then you already showed us a brand new feature from the newest release here, 40.1, I think.
Yeah, right.
Development goes on, of course, so the release schedule is quite moving fast. So
yes.
Perhaps can give a little outlook. What is coming? What is the feature they are currently working on?
Yeah, I mean, they are always looking for community input and want to know what the community wants to be implemented next. So they have a look at this, and you can also like actively participate in all this. Like you can see here all these completed RFCs and also all the active RFCs. I want to have all the RFCs. They should be here, or they should be also in the issues list. So they have many ongoing things, and of course here the milestones are also with which they want to tackle for the version 15, for example, and a big thing which is coming up, or which is being actively discussed right now, for example, is the RFC for using like directives on components themselves. Like we can, of course, put from the outside some directives onto a component, but it was currently not, or it is currently not possible that the component itself says, I want to have this in this directive, like a little bit mixin like, I need the functionality of these directives, and this will be made possible, or is at least discussed right now.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer. And looking at the chat, yeah, everything seems to be very clear.
That's
no
nice,
questions
yes.
anymore. Thank you very much, Karsten. We'll meet again soon. I know that you are talking, for example, at the upcoming conference at WJAX in Munich,
Yes,
where
right.
we can give another update. Of course, Angular is moving fast and new features are coming. Very curious of next things to come here. Thank you very much also for you to be with us here. Thank you to the Entwickler.de community and the DevMio crowd. See you next time.
Yeah, see you. And maybe also for our English audience, maybe also on JAX London, which is in October, I think.
Exactly. You will be also in London for the JAX here in London. Also on Angular, what's your topic there?
Monitoring and performance will be the topics, yes.
Okay, super. Happy to see you there then.
Yeah,
thanks
thank
again.
you for having me. Yes. And
see you next time.
Yeah, see you next time. Thank you, everyone in the chat also.